Okay, with that, welcome everyone. This is kind of like an impromptu thing that I've been called in to do. So we'll be reviewing some gameplay from Serra. Uh, and let's see. One of the priorities that Sarah had mentioned was transitioning through garbage layers, so I'll definitely pay close attention to that. There are some other points to go over, so as they come up, I have my list to my side. I can point various things out. We're looking through my clients today, so I'll just be stopping and going, rewinding here and there. So I'm assuming, yeah, Sarah's watching my screen. Excellent. Feel free to chime in, Sarah. Like if because I'll have questions for you whenever going through various interactions or just wanting to hear from you, like what you're thinking as you're playing through various stages of the game, from your opener to your follow up to your defense and so on and so forth. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So let's take a look at, actually, before I start, do you have any games in particular that you would want me to watch, or anything goes, or just pick and choose as I wish?
You can pick and choose
Okay.
because the set against Dog was something.
Okay.
Close
Let's
matches and
see.
all
The
should
only
be cool.
I'm sorry for chiming in, but the only last thing I have to do is to check the sound on the if the sound is getting picked up properly. If the sound is getting picked up
Sure.
properly. If the sound is getting picked up
Sure.
properly. Yeah, that sounds alright. Well, we are getting heard, so it's fine.
Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the first game right away. Okay, so right around here, this was about the first instance where you were in a position where you're going to start threatening your opponent, as in that small span of, let's say, like 15 seconds, you sent several lines of chain garbage, which is going to be, it will take more time to clear. And yeah, Polly, that was very much intentional. We're not looking at any, we won't have any game audio. It's just so that we focus on whatever's happening on the board, because like we're running with the inherent assumption that with whatever people play with, be it muted or on the flip side relying on in-game sounds, like this will apply to everyone, hopefully. So I've been watching that past 10, 15 seconds, and the first, or rather from the start of that game up until now, it was very much like a poking battle where no one was really threatening each other by topping them out until roughly this stage. Dog is charging up a 6 chain, and Sarah had sent a 4 chain and a 5 chain. It's not quite enough to top Dog out, but it's getting close, and Sarah will also be very much topped out once that piece of garbage drops too. So these are just observations at this point. But as I was mentioning earlier, because Sarah had mentioned that we're trying to focus on transitioning through garbage layers, this upcoming bout of defense will be important. So with that, I'm going to keep going, because that transition is going to happen very soon.
Yep.
Okay. Because you were caught low stack, and therefore didn't have many panels. You were semi lucky to have some extra panels in second tier to beef up your supply. The only problem is you have to make very good use of the little stop time that you were able to get from that 2-chain garbage clear. So wherever you're solving, like, you would be thinking, okay, where else can I? Ideally, you'd be looking at where else can I make stop time. If not, it's like, where can I go for a clear? May not be a garbage clear, but at least something to buy yourself time to solve elsewhere. So with that in mind, let's see where you went. You got lucky with that 3-chain, with the purples just revealing themselves. It's nice because you got stop time. Still have a few like things to take care of with regards to down stacking. So we'll see where this leads. Excellent reaction to get the 6-chain. A little dangerous though. But you managed to get the clear in the end, and you made full use of that stop time. So in this case, you were able to transition. You did end up burning quite a few extra panels to do it, though. Okay, so that was mildly unfortunate. I don't think I can... Oh, yeah, excellent. I can go back just a little bit. How far can I go back? That's pretty good. All right, sorry, I'm just geeking over the fact that we can rewind much more. So, I want to point your attention firstly to this downstack here. You still had stop time loaded up from like a chain prior to that. So downstacking here puts you in a very dangerous spot. You see that?
Yep.
Moreover, even if you were to have still downstacked that, had you waited a little bit longer, you would have actually been able to kind of finesse a clear with the light blues to the left. The reason why I say that is if you waited just a tad bit longer, you would have been able to react to the light blue that's near the center, just dropping down one row rather than two, or all the way down. And that would have a vertical 3 setup. So I'll play this in real or like at half speed. I think so this is interesting. You move the green over and had it propped up. So if you reacted to that as well, which I think is quite reasonable given that you were able to react to certain chain links while under low stack, because you like in hindsight now, of course, because we're going over this, you see those two light blues off to the left. You just have to bring the one that's above near the center to the left, and then you have a clear ready, and you have stop time to take care of that last bit of downstacking, and then you have a clear.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these would ultimately, we would be calling a lot of these kind of like don't be here situations where you're caught in low stack and you're forced to react. But the thing is, if you're capable of reacting and that's your playstyle and your kit allows you to do all of that, then we could say as much as we want that it's dangerous, but you're still going to live and you're still going to come out safe. So if it works for you, then you have a very useful tool in your toolkit.
Yeah, I mean, I am pretty trigger happy in this game. Mostly because of panic, I think.
Hmm.
because I don't trust any stop time, shake time, or something like that.
To which the other solution, we've yet to see some other games, but I'm gonna keep in the back of my mind to see where on average you keep your stack height, and therefore how much time or how much resources that you give yourself. Because if you're playing from mid to mid high stack or high stack, and you're able to make use of that good reaction, then in theory you shouldn't have too much trouble with staying alive by keeping yourself loaded with stop time or finding eventually good sequences for downstacking that allow you to take full advantage of shake time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes.
Okay, so with that, let's move forward. Okay, what else could have been done here? Not much actually. Because you have a piece of chain garbage overhead, I probably might have done something like downstack the red or downstack the yellow so that you're guaranteed to get another some amount of shake time to buy yourself more time to burn out a little bit more of that first tier. Since just by the looks of it, if you have a 3 clear and then downstack those 3 remaining panels, you have enough, you will have burned enough to expose a garbage clear. Fortunately, that was not possible, and that was the end of the game. But it like, these will happen. These panic situations, like, or scrambles, they're going to happen. And then all that matters is, well, how do you respond to them, and what's your framework for solving? If you have a framework of solving that allows you to be flexible, but also not have to go with back-to-back very long sequences of solving, that will help a lot when your resources and capability for getting shake time and stop time is very sparse. All of that to say is, again, it's like the whole don't be here kind of situation, the argument. So we're going to be, hopefully with this session, along with your own training and just reviewing yourself, working towards a state where you don't have to worry about finding yourselves in these situations. And even if you do, you'll have a framework of solving that will avoid haphazard movements, like those panic situations. Okay, let's move on to oh, not this one. We've rewatched this one.
Or you will see these situations like all over the set.
Let's see. Let's do this one. Okay, so this was interesting. Was there any reasoning behind, like, so the first game that I saw you play, you raised 1 row and then started trying to attack. This time you raised 4. Was there any reason for that? Like, were you just looking for something as a trigger point for like an opening chain, or?
I like to start with a 4 combo most of the time.
Okay.
Or when I see exactly some chains falling in, I go for them. So it's pretty much random, I guess, what
Okay.
I do.
All right, we'll keep that in mind then. So you're just like looking for something as you're scanning, and then you'll just continue to raise. So okay, that's totally fine. Find an insert chain. You tried to chain with that 4 combo, didn't pan out. That was really nice though. Like I like that you realize, okay, I'm about to get topped out. I need to start focusing on defense. My stack doesn't look exactly very pretty, but I saw something that I can work with up top, to the left. Now, did you notice that clear early in the sense that it's like, okay, I can abandon whatever I was doing in the lower right corner and go up to the upper left? Or did you realize, okay, like I can't really do much more and now I have to find something?
I trained like a reflex, I guess, to see such things. So I want all the time that I have a defense on top when the garbage comes, and I can defend properly with a 3 or a 4 maybe. It's something I learned pretty recently, I guess. So yeah, I look for them, but most of the time I got unlucky, or I
Okay,
am too slow for that.
too slow. Okay, so there's some stuff to unpack here. It's good that you're thinking about defense at least more actively than what I would expect for someone who's very fresh, to the game, where you're thinking, okay, at some point, I know that I'm going to be topped out. I have to be thinking about defense, and therefore, clears near the top of my stack become important. That helps when that is true, when your stack does, in fact, have clears that are ready to go or set up, and you just have to like pop them. On the flip side, you're going to more likely encounter a situation where that's not the case, where your stack isn't uh, immediately set up to have a garbage clear, and it's instead something that you must work towards by solving uh, that portion of your board, thereby exposing a garbage clear. So you're, or in other words, solving for a clear. Sometimes, like, so again, sometimes you might get lucky and it's very easy to get, but oftentimes that won't be the case, which would explain why you have that struggle of, like, you're talking about not being fast enough to get those garbage clears. So there's a little bit of thinking or just changing or challenging the thinking here, where not only you're looking for things that you can immediately pull or push to get an instant clear, but now you're also thinking about how can I solve my stack so that it ends up with a clear that's ready to go. With that, let's continue on. So again, that was like, so that dark blue clear, I would have actually waited, because in case, and here a big reason for this is because you have an uneven stack and a lot of space that you could have filled that empty space with that single layer of panels. Moreover, you had a very high chance of not being topped out with a follow up because you had so much empty space to fill. And to illustrate this, let me move back just a tad bit from roughly around here. So without knowing where, okay, so looking for like the near the top of your stack where that dark blue is, to the left of that dark blue, there's going to be just one panel that falls. So you know that you can't downstack in that direction. But there's a ton of space 2 columns over, or, and even more so, 3 columns over. If you just set up that dark blue, for now we'll call that a 3 clear, because we don't know what's up top until it reveals itself. Then you could pop it with just like, if you can pop no, sorry, if you don't know what's the best thing to do, or you might get like a bad roll for RNG for a garbage clear. You could make use of that 3 clear later after those panels have fallen to buy yourself some time to skim off the top a little bit to expose a garbage clear later. It does mean that you're still burning more panels, but it gives you a little bit more certainty with what you're working with within the board rather than burning it too early, thereby not giving yourself that luxury. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm, I think like I'm a player, or better say my playstyle. I love to have 3 or 4 rows, and then with the garbage clear stacking up, and then I try to attack with all the board I have. If that makes any sense, I guess.
You try to have 3 or 4 rows of panels, so like in the like in your stack as a whole, or do you mean when you're attacking you try to make use of 3 to 4 rows per attack?
Um, let me explain. I mean, I work or burn more or less. It's a burn, I guess. Um, I try to chain or combo if I have enough panels for it, and I don't think about the next steps or what can I do for my defense. So my defense in most of the time begins with 3 or 4 rows of panels left. So
Okay.
and after I get a defense and my board fills up with more panels, I try to yeah, I try to attack with that. It's like a cycle, basically, I would say, but it's
Okay, so I like that you're able to kind of describe what the framework, your intended framework is for attacking. It also helps me paint a very like a clear picture of how that could be punished. So you mentioned that once you have a lot of panels, you want to make full use of them to
yes.
attack. That's excellent. You want to be able to continually send follow-up pressure. You don't want to lose out on a kill opportunity. Every time that your opponent, because you can think of it this way, every time your opponent is no longer topped off, but their stack is still moving in that they ran out of stop time, that is a moment where you could have taken the game had you sent enough. So it's good that you're trying to make sure that you keep your opponent topped off. Now, if you were to burn all the way to say 3 or 4 rows, that in and of itself isn't immediately bad until you consider what is being thrown at you. So this is something that I would recommend to players just in general to start keeping in the back of their mind. Be aware of what your opponent is preparing to send your way. Because if they're charging a very large chain and just like nonstop, you burn to 3 or 4 rows, and then they drop that chain on you. Sure, you might be safe with a garbage clear, but you're just sitting there forever to clear a huge piece of chain garbage that is basically completely on your screen. What makes that even more dangerous, as you've mentioned with the struggles with transitioning through garbage layers, is that your opponent would have more control over what's going to be sent next to you while you're working through that large piece of garbage. And if they choose to send several mid-sized chain garbage to you or several 3 chains to you like a factory, then you're going to have nothing but layered garbage. And if they know that they can punish you with a weakness or struggling with transitions, then burning down to 3 or 4 rows could spell a disadvantageous situation for you. Not immediately losing the game, but perhaps risking you drop the game 1.5 minutes from the moment that that piece of garbage drops on you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I've I guess my problem is, I mean, it gets better, I would say, but I have a pretty big problem to see some chains or 4 combos, 5 combos if I have too much panels on my board.
Okay. That's very like that's fair. Like it's very easy to get overwhelmed perceptually, sensory overload. I've also described this when I was learning 10 where I would have trouble with navigating a full board. One thing that I found that helped me would be to focus just on a small portion of my board first, solve that and that only, get myself a 2 chain or a 4 combo. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but doing that while I have that full board, it's going to buy me time to look for areas that I could solve next. And I would look towards, with a preference towards, areas that are not likely to be changing by the time I get to them. So, in other words, let's say if I was looking at the bottom left corner, I solved that. I would just on instinct, I would look to the bottom right next to see if there's anything I can work with over there, because panels near the bottom right corner are very unlikely to fall, trigger a match, what have you. So, for all intents and purposes, that area shouldn't expect to change, and therefore 2, 3, 5 seconds from the time that I've solved and popped stuff in the bottom left corner, the bottom right corner should still be as I had seen it earlier. Another way of putting this is just think about like the countdown right at the start of the game. Nothing is moving, and therefore, as you move and navigate through your board, if you didn't swap anything, moving from one area of that board to the next, there will have been no changes. So in that sense, you have not literally but figuratively like all the time in the world to make a decision. So hopefully that can change the perception of how much time you have in reality, depending on how much setup and preparation you do elsewhere.
Hmm. Okay.
With that, I would like to move on with this game because it just so happens you have a 4 combo conveniently in the bottom left corner. So I'm interested to see what happens with that 4 combo. If it's popped, if it's not, if something has made use of it, bot stop time. So let's see what happens. Oh, that's going the wrong way. Okay. So you pop the dark blue. We've already talked about that. So that green is going to trigger a chain. We get a 3 chain link with the 3 chain 4 combo link with the light blues. Good reaction. You didn't pop the red combo early, and therefore you were rewarded with converting that into a 5 combo. So that transition was basically textbook. You didn't overburn too much, and you kept your stack in a pretty healthy state. Okay, so here I would be expecting, if you're fast enough, a 5 combo, if not, a 4 combo. You got a 4 combo. So here, I don't know if Lava has talked to you about. I think, yeah, Lava has spoken to you about Shogun opportunities, right? And like
Yes.
solving for them.
Yes.
Do you see one right here?
No.
Okay.
I think it. Yeah, the dark blue in the second tier.
It is indeed the dark blue.
Yeah.
And it's convenient, like the textbook ones that you see would be made with a 3 clear. Sorry, 3 clear to clear the garbage. But I think that one was a 4 combo. But in this case, because of where, like in the case of fall distances, there was nothing else to really adjust except for moving the dark panel in position, the dark blue panel in position. But that didn't happen. Didn't really matter because you got a 2-chain off of it, so you would have been saved if you were still topped out. You would just need to do a bit more finagling with your stack and find a garbage clear elsewhere. Now you're threatened a little bit more. That was an excellent move. So you may have thought, right, just, I don't know if you had thought to drop that purple panel and then you realize, oh wait, that also could go towards a garbage clear. And because you had been thinking, as you mentioned, about keeping an eye near the top of your stack to see if there are garbage clears that are ready to go or close to solved, that awareness rewarded you with a garbage clear when you really did need it, since now you're kind of like mid stack and nearly topped out. Had you went ahead and dropped that purple panel and caused the 2-chain, sure, you would have gotten more stop time, but it would have forced you to have to burn a little bit more if you didn't notice, for example, the light blues that could have made a 4 combo on the right would still require you to downstack 2 panels, and that all takes time. But anyway, that was excellent. You realized, okay, this is a great opportunity to get that garbage clear. You went for it. I'm thinking here you were probably trying to figure out, okay, how do I solve the left side?
Yes.
Yeah, so there are some there's a few ways to do it. If it were me, I probably would have been really greedy. So we won't talk about that. So I'll just see what you ended up doing. You got very lucky getting that garbage clear in time, but no gap. So I don't know if Lava had spoken to you about this concept that we've been kind of like discussing, where we try to make use of shake time by burning just enough panels to ensure that if we need to get shake time, we can get shake time.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yes.
Okay. So therefore you understand that because your stack, you had no stop time left and your stack was still in contact with garbage after that layer of garbage had cleared, it just spells instant death unless you can go like execute a frame perfect swap and, for example, downstack or trigger a match. Moving back from there, I don't know if it's possible. Let's see. Yeah, of course it is. Excellent. Let's see. From here, there would be no way. Like, this is like split-second reaction time for you to have to react to like the greens on the left side trying to chain, which means I have to move even further back to see what else would have made sense. So what I would have done here, because you went for that 3 clear with the blues, I would have just immediately, without hesitation, popped a combo. And you have some choice here between making a vertical 4 with the purples, making a 7 for safety with the purples and greens, or if you were able to react fast enough, do just a 6 combo with the purples and greens. But in all of those options, you will have knocked out quite a bit of what would have otherwise become a left side pillar, because so many purple panels to the left side being cleared. Well, not really so many, but you have like 3 or 4 depending on the combo, would give you space to downstack the second column from the left if necessary, and build towards a solution closer to the middle. And even if that weren't possible right away, that combo would have given you stop time to trigger matches elsewhere for extra cleanup as necessary. Because we're using our replay tool, we can kind of speculate what could have been doable. So we'll do that now. So I just have to remind myself that I have to perceptually like just imagine that those purples are still over to the left. Okay, so there are some this would be kind of difficult. I have to like just go back so I'm confirming this. Yes. So had you popped this 4 combo to the left, because the garbage had revealed some like light blues as well, you probably could have made that into something that can lead to a garbage clear later. So it's like 4 combo with it. We know that it didn't happen, but oh gee, let's go back. No, that's not it. I'll just go like this. So 4 combos to the left, bring over, for example, the 2 light blues where they were, each of them 2 space, like to the right 2 spaces, and you would have enough stop time afterwards to downstack and make another 4 combo with the light blues. Or if you didn't have the space, you might have to make use of like some more panels and downstack extra. But yeah, like there are options, but you have to seize those opportunities first. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say on that game. Is what I'm saying make sense here?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to another game. All right. Let's do... I'm going to assume this one is a bit longer. Okay, so this one you raised a little bit more. Yeah, a little bit of trouble there trying to figure out how do I get to a garbage clear. You were spending quite a few swaps to get something, which would have otherwise been fatal had Dog been able to send enough to top you out right then and there. When that happens, if you know that they're not sending enough to top you out, then you don't really have to worry about choosing somewhere else that's better to solve. And you can just take your time at your leisure. But if you're facing someone that definitely is more than capable of topping you out at a moment's notice, then you would have to seek solutions elsewhere. Nothing really much that I have to talk about here because there wasn't any like garbage to transition through. So with that, let's move to another game. I'm gonna assume maybe this one is a bit longer. That was good judgment of fall distances to get that 4-chain link.
And that was luck, more or less.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I have to remind myself like how like replays were named in terms of like gauging times. I think I'm off by like one. I think this
Yeah,
this one's longer, this one's shorter, I believe. So okay.
I think so too.
Oh, that was unfortunate. Did you notice that you cut the chain by that with that swap?
I did?
Yeah, I'll show you. If you left that on its own and
Yeah,
did nothing
yeah,
to it, it's funny because that other like literally the previous game that we looked at, you had a chain where it was not the bottom row that was matching, but the second to bottom row, just one run row above it.
Mhm.
So had you continued that, like had you left that there, not only will that have chained, but you would have gotten many more options to continue the chain afterwards. So for example, if you left that there, then you get the chain with the reds. Had you not swapped the dark blue, you could have continued the chain using the dark blues. Otherwise, you can still continue it with the yellows. This requires a slide. You got it. Nothing yet to transition through, so we'll be waiting to see if Dog sends more than one larger chain. Starts with the 3-chain, but let's see if you get to it before Dog gets to you. No. Okay. Well, not really. Like, so there's a Shogun here, but the well is covered. Sends a larger chain. No, it's another 3-chain. Good that you found a 4 combo for that. Okay, so now this is going to be a similar situation. You're about to be topped out. You have a lot of panels to work with, but they're not arranged in a very nice way. So let's see how you work through this. Good reaction for the insert. Good reaction again, just to drop that chain into place. Okay, so longer game, but you definitely chewed through the garbage pretty nicely. And like to your credit, just looking at the analytics here, it's pretty convenient. You sent roughly well, no, you actually sent the exact same number of chain lines to one another. Dog sent 4 from the 5-chain, 4 from 3 chains, and then 6 2-chains. You sent 2 6-chains, and then 8 lines from 3 chains. So basically equivalent. But because you had so much of that fall on you at once, that probably made it a lot easier to like get your panels back. Whereas for Dog, after getting through all of those 3 chains, your other 2 chains and other combo garbage fell. Okay. I don't have much to comment on that game. Let's see. This might be a longer one. I'm noticing that pattern that you were just based on what your description earlier, where you're trying to quickly find something that you can use to attack for your opener. Still trying to react to how to arrange your stack. Okay, so I'll stop right there and move back a little bit. So here, you mentioned that you're trying to think, with regards to the top of your stack and what defensive options that you have if you have like a garbage clear that's ready to go. It just so happens that in this case, with a bit of thinking ahead and solving with that in mind, you could actually have gotten yourself a clear ready to go. I'll give you a moment first to figure out what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, I think I know.
Okay.
The dark blue, one tile left, and then the yellows.
Precisely. Yep. That's it. And naturally, of course, people like depending on different players' solving frameworks, they might see other things. But that the yellow clear, the right off the center, was one such option, and that just depends on you seeing that. Okay, I can move a panel into that spot so that they fall in such a way that I don't have to move any panels down. They're already in position. And luckily, in this case, that solve only takes one swap after the setup is done.
Mm. Yeah, I can't see that in action.
I think because your reactions like seem to be strong enough based on what I've seen from various combos and chains, this is something that can reasonably be applied to solving for defense and in turn solving for offense, because when you're not topped out and you're not having to commit to specific solves for defense, you can still make use of certain types of pattern recognition to bolster your offense when you hold the advantage in pressure. So that you don't have to, for example, with each potential opportunity, sacrifice or lose out on 1.5, 2.5 extra lines that you could have otherwise sent. And as games go longer for you, as you get better, those missed opportunities for lines, they can add up.
Mm.
Idea like this is like more thinking for the future where you're trying to really get as much as you can out of your stack. But I still maintain that it's important to think about that now so that you have more time to build up those habits. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let's continue on. I still have to I keep forgetting. Okay, anyway. Even though you didn't get the yellows up top, you were able to rally immediately after, and you got a 2 chain for your troubles, 3 chain, 4 chain. Little danger there, but you had more than enough panels to work with. You're still in low stack, a little bit of danger. Ideally, in this situation, you're not burning too much. You went for a tier 2 clear pretty early, try to make use of more garbage clearing at once. Not inherently a bad thing. It does demand more attention from you as the player doing that, because then you have 2 areas that if you're not paying attention, you can mess up. In this case, you didn't, and it rewarded you with uh, a nice game win there. Not too much to comment on here on the back of everything else that we've discussed so far. At this point, do you have any questions?
Oh no, no.
Okay. Um, Before I continue, I'm just looking at like the list of things that we were trying to work on. So didn't have too many games yet-ish that I've looked at transitions. We have, in general, it was more so that we've looked at how to set up garbage clears or how to see them in advance. But they still have a place in transitions in general, because you will need to make use of that knowledge in order to inform how you would go for transitioning through garbage layers. And that does technically touch on board organization. We've talked about how we can work on areas that are less likely to change. They are more predictable, and it affords you more time rather than having to make back to back split second decisions that, if they go wrong, that will lead to you dropping a game. Uh, we haven't talked too much about like stop and shake time aside from the no gap situation, but you've already mentioned that you're trying to look for combos, especially for garbage clears. So I don't think I have to worry too much yet about visiting that idea of just keeping yourself loaded with stop time. Avoiding ghost clears. If you're not solving near the bottom of your stack as you're raising, you're usually going to be fine. And as I've seen so far, you tend to raise before swapping, so that more or less eliminates that risk, unless you swap near the bottom of your stack after raising and then proceed to raise again.
Yeah, I try at least.
Mm-hmm. I
I
mean,
mean,
it's not
I
that you shouldn't, but if you're going to do so, then you have to be aware that there's a chance that you might get a ghost clear.
yeah, I am aware of that, but I mean, after I talked with Lava, I have much less ghost clears with that. Yeah, but more or less it's somewhat too much for me that it likely happened in a set for 4 or 5 times at least. But I'm working on it.
Okay. I still get ghost clears like myself, and that's just usually because I'm careless or I'm thinking of something, or I fail to execute on something that I've been thinking of, and it just leads to a bad time. What matters after that is how do you rally and how do you recover. So for example, like if we take that other game, for example, like that short one where you weren't topped off by dog immediately, but you had a lot of time to clear the garbage on your board and you were kind of struggling there. If instead it was like a ghost clear that led to that situation, you would still likely have a lot of panels to work with, but you're also now anticipating getting topped out with a lot of garbage, assuming it happens at the beginning of the game, working on the opener and stuff like that. Then you have to consider, okay, not only have to think of defense, my board shape and arrangement will look very messy. If I downstack now, I'm already actively changing portions of my board that would have otherwise not have to seen not to have wouldn't have had to seen so much change compared against the bottom left and bottom right corners where I could buy stop time first, which also brings into consideration you being aware of when your opponent is going to drop stuff on you. So it's a very convoluted idea because there's so many things going on and they're all interrelated. But yeah, being able to recover is important in those situations. Just as like I talked about with those panic situations where you find yourself with very few panels, you're under a lot of garbage, so your options are very limited and you have very little time to do that, to like execute. While we do call them don't be here situations, the fact that you have adequate reaction to what I've seen, like for chains and combos, like you should still be able to get out of them in the same way that where you're messed up by a ghost clear, if you're making good use of that reaction, you should be able to figure out, okay, immediately what's my next, where should I go next to solve so that I can fight back to a better position. Does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, most of the time, a shadow clear mess me up, like caught me off guard.
Yeah.
This the situation I don't know how to describe it. It feels like my plan to clear my board or to set up a attack just vanish. So I have to rearrange and make plans, and that's most of the time. If I get a shadow clear, I lose basically, or
Right.
that's at least my feeling.
It makes a lot of sense when we put together the fact that if your existing framework here is to burn down to 3 or 4 rows, you like a ghost clear would, under those conditions, would cleave the center or some portion of your board completely, and then now you've lost some of like potential solve routes. But on the flip side, you've opened new ones. It's still not a great situation, because if you're going from 3 or 4 rows and you get a ghost clear, that's a huge chunk or percentage of your existing stack, assuming everything above is garbage or panels that you can't make any extra solves out of, like no second tier clears and whatnot.
Mm,
A
yes.
higher, like a taller stack of panels protects better against the effects to your board that would happen from ghost clears of like cleaving so much. Except for the fact that having more panels and then getting a ghost clear can trigger other matches. So yeah, you'll get more stop time, but your board becomes even less predictable should you get a ghost clear, because so much more could end up popping. To which then you have to think, okay, well, where do I look when I have more panels and more things are popping for other solve routes? Just give yourself a moment to think about that and see like what, this is kind of open ended, but there is like a general answer that uh, does make sense depending on the situation.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's like I get a shadow clear, I am emotionally damaged. It triggers me so much that I get a shadow clear. It's unbelievable. I hate that. That's, I don't know. I guess I have to work on that.
Okay,
But
so you say that
yeah,
you have to work on that. How would you work on avoiding these ghost clears? We've already kind of talked about it, so there's
well,
something that you
yeah.
can do.
Primarily, don't swap in the bottom corner or bottom. What's it called? Bottom row. That would
There's a
be
part two to that though, because if you stay to like with if you stick with only 3 to 4 rows of panels, then would have kept yourself out of quite a few potential moves for solving your board. If you have, let's say, if you're working with 3 rows and you say, okay, to prevent ghost clears, I will not touch the bottom row. I won't even touch the middle row. The inherent problem with that is that relegates all of your potential movement to your top row, all
so.
for the sake of avoiding ghost clears or shadow clears.
Yeah, so basically, I set a trap for myself.
Right. it becomes so dangerous if you lock into that as the definitive way to protect it with that framework. So for that, like my second piece of advice to you would be to start getting uncomfortable just a little bit more. And the way to do that is to work instead of downstacking to 3 or 4 rows or burning to 3 or 4 rows all the time. This would be a bit harder. Well, actually very hard, because if you screw up here, you're basically dead. Try to downstack not to 3 to 4 rows, but instead 5 or 6. Try as best as you can to not get down all the way to 3 or 4 rows.
Mm.
It might not seem like a lot, because like going from 3 to 4 to 5, 5 to 6 is a difference of at most 18 panels. But I guarantee you, it's not going to be easy. On the one hand, it reduces the amount of leeway that you have to get to safety because you can't burn so much. And also, once you get down to 5 or 6 rows rather than 3 or 4, less garbage is required to top you out. And therefore, if you're not ready, you're going to die sooner.
Okay.
But this is something that I do suggest for you to start really pushing for solve vision. Just as you had identified, for example, like in that time sensitive incident, like trying to find that 3 clear with the yellows and up top as garbage was clearing near the center, like setting something like that up. The same kind of logic applies here, where all of these decisions are time sensitive and you have to take fall distances into account live as you're solving one section and moving to the next. While the goal to get down to 5 or 6 lines rather than 3 or 4 is the overarching goal I have for you, you can realistically try working your way up by applying that general framework of solve vision and just thinking of like, how can I solve the puzzle to make sure that my garbage clear is immediately ready, by going down all the way to 3 or 4 rows and work your way up.
Okay.
Oh, that's perfect. So, and that was the other points within that list, just working on pathfinding. So there you go. That's something that I wanted to touch on, and I did.
Yeah, pathfinding is a problem. It gets better. I feel more comfortable on 10 lately, but yeah, I have a big problem with pathfinding.
Mm. So yeah, do like because you've identified that as your main like issue or struggle, that's an area of improvement that stands to give you a lot, as you try to attack it. And here's where it gets complicated, because there's so many things that you could be working on with regards to that solve vision. So you yourself will have to start thinking, okay, like how do these solves work for follow-up attacks? How do these solves look like for transitions, general defense, trying to keep myself from overburning? Even though the game that we're looking at right now already ended here, let's say for argument's sake that it would have continued on. How would you have continued with this game?
Uh, let me see. The dark blue pops. I would go for that red in the middle to get my green chain, and then I would go for a defense. Maybe the light blues with a
Okay.
4 or a 5. More a 4 because I'm way too slow, I guess. So I love my 4 combos. I love them so much. So it will be likely a 4 combo for my
Okay.
defense.
Yeah, that's totally valid. If it were me, I guess if it were me, I would have been thinking about what else is overhead. If I knew that there were more larger chains coming down, I wouldn't want to. I would want to solve it in a way that prevents having more of them in their entirety on my board. So to do that, I would have let the dark blues chain as you would have, but then I would have set up a 5 combo with the light blues off to the left.
Mm.
If instead it was only combo garbage, I might have decided to burn more in the form of like more combos and chains. Reason for that is because Dog had brought all of that 6 chain onto the board. So if I didn't have more garbage following that lone 6 combo, and in truth there probably wasn't, because 6 combos out of what you sent would be the last to fall unless you sent a few more 5 combos immediately after. Therefore, in which case downstacking from that point would have led to safety. Then I would have wanted to send more to guarantee that Dog in the next 10 seconds would be topped out, even after downstacking. So with that, you see, like I've outlined more than one solve route depending on what I'm seeing with my opponent.
Okay.
You don't have to think about this right away, but I do want you to keep that in the back of your mind. And anyone else who's like listening in who is trying to gain something from like this review session, yeah, that awareness is helpful. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but just a few mental notes of, oh, uh, more large garbage is coming. If I overburn, that means I have to sit through all of that garbage clearing time eventually. More combo garbage is coming to my board, which means that if I downstack a ton, and like by burning in the form of combos and chains, I can very easily replenish my board and get more ammunition to send back. So there are very general things that uh, don't require too much mental load to keep logged in the back of your mind just for that small amount of time. But again, it's a skill that needs to be trained. So it's not something that I expect to happen overnight. Just like the work with pathfinding, trying to prevent ghost clears, um, all of that stuff.
Okay.
Okay, with that, let's take a look. Maybe like look at maybe one or two more games. Oh, not this one. Uh, okay, we're near the end of the set, so let's maybe do this one as our last one. Good setup. Make sure that you're ready with the 4. Popped another. Okay, so here
Yeah, trigger happy.
Yeah. So here, this is actually a good opportunity to exercise that instinct for solve vision. Not because even if you're watching or reading, you're not necessarily not doing anything by standing still. But if you're swapping in an area that isn't going to benefit you, then you really would have, in hindsight, have been better off not swapping. So you don't have to worry in that regard if you're not quote unquote doing anything. So that was like a mouthful just to say that time and a place for your swaps. There are instances where players may have many opportunities to do more, but there are just as many instances where players could have gotten away with better outcomes by doing less. Being able to identify that is what's hard. So here, yes, like, let's say like if I had this board and I didn't pop the vertical threes with the reds, not only I would have, for example, could have done, actually no, leaving this alone completely gets you a, what was that? Yeah, that was a two chain with the reds, still not doing anything, and then you get a chain with the dark blues. Do you see that?
No.
So that's probably because it's a little bit further removed from where the reds would have otherwise chained. Directly up from where your cursor is, you see those two dark blues.
Yeah.
Let those fall by one row, you get a chain.
Huh. Interesting.
It's a bit harder to, like, it's admittedly like probably harder for some players to look at this because most of the chaining like tutorials that you would have gotten literally like in any like console game as such, those chains are usually very close. Like the chain links are very close by. And when they're teaching you to construct chains on the fly, like skill chains or active chaining, they're usually referring to panels that are close by rather than ones that you have to move around your board to get to. Fortunately, in this example, they're already in the perfect spot and you don't have to do anything. But as you recognize that pattern, if you have a lot of time to move panels elsewhere, you could perchance take that trigger happy nature of like swapping, wanting to do something, and move to a place where you won't punish yourself for swapping extra because they're all going towards a dedicated purpose. Because for argument's sake, let's say those dark blue panels weren't arranged such that they are in the perfect position and you don't have to do anything. Let's say that the dark blue panel that's third from the left in the center was all the way to the left. But you knew that and you wanted to make use of those specific panels. You would have time while the reds are chaining to get up there to the left and bring that dark blue panel in place.
Yes.
And there you wouldn't be sitting around doing nothing. Like you're actively doing something. At the same time, I want to advise you, just like as a reminder, like just because you're able to, you want to still have that consideration of saying like, do I have to do that every single time? So ultimately you would be finding a way that works best for you, and you're not overloading yourself in and putting yourself into needlessly putting yourself into dangerous situations that could have been avoided had you gone for simpler solves. But as you continue to learn more and more solves and get comfortable with them, uh, your toolbox or toolkit will expand, and so will the options that are open to you.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, do you have any other questions for me?
Um. Hmm. Not really, I guess.
Okay, with that, I think we're good to call it here then. We've basically gone over everything that was on our list today. I hope this helps and would be able to like just serve for a little bit of uh, thinking that can feed into how you visualize your board and how you solve. I recommend like you don't have to necessarily train all of these things in two player. You can certainly make use of other training modes to get a feel for them, but also, of course, reinforce that in two player versus. For example, like the pattern recognition for combos and chains, you can do that anywhere. You can do that in Combo Storm, you can do that in Marathon versus yourself, for example. For transitions, you can do that in Factory. If you're working on trying to do solve pathfinding, you can very easily do that with Combo Storm because you get filled with nothing but combo garbage. So you're always putting yourself in a situation where you have a full board of panels and you can just continue to downstack to a target number of rows. So like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, and then see, okay, where's my solve? And if it's not immediately apparent, like or if you're struggling just because of the speed, you can always like bring the difficulty level down, work your way up so you understand the concept behind that, and then get used to the timing. So depending on the player, like some players don't want to do that, and that's totally fine. It just means that you have that layer of complexity to deal with at the same time.
Yeah, I don't tackle that mode, Combo Storm, for instance, because I can't play alone, if that makes sense. I feel like I have no motivation to work or play like I would play against a dog or a deagle or you or lava. So my I would say I'm not at a power against myself or some kind of these scenarios. Yeah, I would say it's it's something like that. It's hard to describe, but I feel like I'm not at my peak when I play against me or against some of these scenarios.
I see. To which I could almost make the argument that depending on what you're using those training modes for, you don't necessarily have to quote unquote play at your peak in order to train various concepts. So let me give you an example of like just transitions. So if you're playing through Factory, the only thing that you should be thinking about at like if you're learning transitions for the first time is getting used to identifying where potential transition clears exist and solving them. Nothing else with regards to working that into your gameplay with offensive balance of offense and defense. That should not matter. Not when you're starting right right from the get-go and just like trying to figure things out. Implementing that comes later. Putting that into context, of course, you know what transitions look like, and you're not completely new to the concept. So instead, it might demand a little bit more. For example, like you might want to be able to not overburn while looking for transitions, or try to get used to working through your stack more effectively while you have the time to do so. Those kinds of more complex ideas and objectives, if you know how to make use of the training modes to your advantage, then they can still work. But then, yes, otherwise, your ideal would be to just play against a bunch of players with those specific improvement points in mind and not be lazy. Because if you, for example, if a player would just go on autopilot and not think about the things that they're trying to train while they're playing against people, then they might come out of those sets thinking, well, I don't think I've really improved, because you have to, there's that element of a need to push for those specific things if you want to work and on improving those specific problem areas.
Yeah, you're right. I had the time to. That makes sense. Yes.
Taking another problem area in, like, for example, let's say tomorrow or whenever you next play panel, you're playing a bunch of players, but you're still struggling with ghost clears. Based on our discussion, once you realize, oh, I'm struggling with that, what things would come to mind to try to combat that? What would your gut reaction be in an attempt to stifle those ghost clears?
I would play more or less defense. Yeah, defense mode, and look especially for that. Do not ghost clear.
And how exactly will you prevent those ghost clears?
I don't know.
We've talked about some very specific things to do.
Yeah, but I don't think. I mean, everybody of us has reflexes, and I'm not the person to disable my reflex in a game. So I especially for me, I have to, yeah, put me in situations that I don't do ghost clears and forget all other things around me, basically.
Which is totally fine. It's totally fine to drop 1, 5, 10, 1,000 games just because you're working on trying to get into the habit of solving in a way that avoids ghost clears. So for those specific things that I listed, I'm pointing to, for example, not burning down strictly to 3 or 4 rows, as well as not swapping too much near the bottom of your stack if you're in a position to continue raising or you're expecting to get another row of panels really soon due to stack raise. If you can remind yourself, like, okay, no more swapping near the bottom, but also raise more or have more panels, that will already check off. And if you do them, of course, that already checks off what you have to do. If you drop a game, you drop a game, but at least you will have prevented the ghost clear. Because right now, under those circumstances, that's what your main focus should be. Does that make sense?
Yes.
We can, and then again, taking like transition clears for like or garbage transitions as another example, instead of like prevent, so the specific thing that you would be doing here would be, you know, avoiding being trigger happy and really reading your board and make sure that you get to where you need to go. If you fumble a little bit, you're maybe one or two swaps shy because you just read it a little bit too late. At least you would have not been trigger happy, and that's already a step in the right direction. Does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, after I speak with Lava about some of these topics, I'm more aware about my playstyle, but I realize it way too late. So I make a move in a game, and then I realize, oh, that was a mistake. So I mean, I'm at that level to identify as I play where my, or if it was a mistake to go for I don't know, 4 combo or a burn or something like that. But yeah, as I said, too late. Way too late.
The fact that
And
you like identified that, regardless of it being too late, is a very good sign. If you keep those in the back of your mind, eventually you'll be reacting to them where you were only slightly late or just a smidge late, and then eventually you'll be ahead of those problems and you won't have to worry about those like effects of having missed those opportunities or realizing something too late. So continue to remind yourself, but just remind yourself at the same time, like, oh yeah, like you may have missed it, but remind yourself next time. So like the next 5 times or the next 10 times that happens, you're constantly thinking about not preempting those movements so that you can develop that as a habit. You've gotten the first part where you're identifying it. The second part is persistence.
okay. It may be a I need to tell that. It may be a bit of a cringe situation, I guess. But if my defense is on point, I guess, and I get out of a situation that I'm not topped out anymore, I more or less being proud of myself. I say it that way, and yeah, say to me some things like, oh, that was a good hold or something like that. So in the game, I mean, yeah.
Okay, yeah, like being able to like completely empty out your opponent's garbage queue is definitely a good thing. Like being able to like clear efficiently and quickly. But once you're in that spot, you are now in a position where you can control even more so the flow of the game. Because then there's nothing up top and you're guaranteed for the next however much time it takes for your opponent to top you at the next time, you're safe. You can do whatever you want. And in this case, if you choose to, when able to do whatever you want, to send follow-up attacks, you can choose exactly what you're going to send. That requires making use of good solve vision. But now it's no longer solve vision that's applied to defense, but now to offense.
Mm,
So that same skill that you're going to be working on for defense to trying to find uh a way to solve towards a garbage clear, now you can apply that, if you successfully get through all of your opponent's garbage and they missed out on a kill opportunity because you're no longer topped out, and you can raise to however much you want. Now you can start thinking, okay, well, in the time that I have before I am topped out next, what else can I send? And how can I send it in a way that keeps me safe for when I do get garbage next?
Yeah, I mean, in my case, it's like what have I sent in my defense? For instance, if my defense is I don't know, eight chain, for instance, and I'm not topped out, I try to switch things up to keep my opponent occupied, basically. So I go for combos, more or less. Or if I combo my defense and I'm not top out, I try to chain, but it's, yeah, not consistent. It's more like a situation. What can I see? What can I make in a time? Because I have in mind I play like I am always topped out, basically.
Mm-hmm. That would be a product of like who you play against. If it's mostly players that are stronger, then yeah, it's very reasonable to expect that you'll be topped out all the time. But in the rare situations that you aren't, it does bring into question a lot of the points that we have been talking about. Because if it's only going to be a limited amount of time that you are no longer topped out before you do eventually get hit with garbage. So if you're combining that, um, your struggles with being trigger happy, swapping anywhere on the board to find something, which might include the bottom, and therefore invite the risk of ghost clears, and then have problems with pathfinding because things are clearing and blocking you out of other paths, like solve routes. You have this kind of complex problem, all because you are no longer topped out and no longer have something to work towards. In this case, it would have been staying alive and clearing through garbage. But now that we've spoken, like, you can start just with baby steps thinking about like being able to send specific things that you want to do in a way that will not hamper your flow or interfere with the rate at which you're trying to send garbage.
Hmm. I'll keep that in mind.
Okay. All right. I think with that we've hit a pretty good stopping point. I think that like we've definitely covered everything that we needed to cover. Do you have any like closing words, Sarah, for this session?
Hmm.
Like any thoughts or anything that you're definitely like going to work on prioritizing first and stuff like that?
Oh, prioritizing would be not to be too trigger happy. Plan more ahead, I think. And yeah, transitions. I need to fix my transitions issue.
Okay. Excellent. Well, best of luck to you working on all of those problem areas. And if we see each other in lobby, always happy to spar. And because you told me about that, like I'll certainly be looking to see if you're able to make good on those problem areas, like trying to fix them. So expect layered garbage, at
Oh,
least from me.
send me all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean I don't have a problem. I want to get my playstyle not perfect because no of us is perfect, but in a pretty good shape, I guess. So I love to play against you, against lava, against chaos, and possibly to get on that kind of level is a motivation for me. But on the other hand, if I get beaten, it's or I get frustrated
Hmm.
sometimes. not
Sure.
not in a bad way, but I think I could hold my defense longer or something like that, for instance. So,
Right.
but my goal is to maybe a diamond. I mean plat. I'm pretty close to plat, I think.
Okay.
But I have to. I mean my play style has changed quite a lot in the last 2 months. So it's a good sign for me. And I know my mistakes. I know my uh, basically what kills me more or less all the time. So I know I have to work, and I gladly will work on that. And yeah, we will see. So I can say at least send me all the things you got. I gladly enjoy to hold or something like that. But I'm always on top, or try at least to be on top to get a better set for me and my opponent. So because 20-second games are not fun. That's my opinion.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'll do my best to send all the layered garbage if it means that it'll help you with your training. And yeah, I definitely think that if you can apply that way of thinking of just trying, like you already have a very healthy mindset of trying to want to improve by looking at these very specific things and work towards those goals. Yeah, you can definitely do it. So yeah, just keep it up and you'll get there eventually. Just be patient and be persistent.
Yeah, I try my best.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking time for me to go over some of the games.
Oh, you're
I
welcome.
I enjoyed it, and yeah, nice.
Yeah, this is very enjoyable. I'm glad that I got to hear like your insights as well because it's helpful. It's helpful to kind of run these with other people and just put your thoughts out there. It will help a lot in informing your own thinking and kind of like developing your mindset and your framework. So yeah, I'm happy that this was helpful for you.
Oh, it was, yes.
To everyone else tuning in, thanks for listening to basically a like us talking with a still screen for most of the stream. But I hope that this was also helpful for anyone else that had been listening in. But with that, we'll be wrapping things up. This has been Musical and Serra. Thanks to Lava for running the stream. And if we're not live like any time before the weekend, our next stream would be the January 2025 advanced tournament. So perfect venue for Sarah to display, the fruits of your training.
Yeah, I join the tournament, yes.
All right. And with that, have a good day, night, afternoon, wherever you are. Take care.
Bye bye, guys.